Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Ren. Always happy that we can keep you company on your commute. Oh, I know that feeling, Kayla.
Yeah, gotta spend time with the fam. Happens.
I don't know why they call holidays vacations. Do more work on holidays than any other day of the year.
For real, especially this time of year.
So, yeah, we're going to be checking out
Super excited for the stream. Heck yeah. What are we doing?
getting back to some Harry Potter action.
Harry Potter. Harry Potter.
Doing our favorite chapters. Maybe we'll do some of the worst. Why they're the worst.
Well, I was kind of leaving the choice up to you
Oh, okay.
for which chapter we would read and discuss tonight. So, unless anyone else has a good
I was
suggestion.
gonna say maybe someone else could get a suggestion because I can't. I'd have to look at the books more.
So
I've only read these books once. I don't know.
what we wanted to do today,
I haven't even read these books.
I read them to you.
I know.
What we wanted to do today was kind of read a favorite chapter and kind of go really in depth into that chapter and read and discuss that chapter. Or maybe a chapter that you hated and we could read that and talk about why you hated it. Either way, I am down to read some Harry Potter and then talk about it.
Do you have a favorite chapter? Like, is there a chapter that is just like your go-to? Or is there just a chapter that you get to and you just skip it now because you just hate it?
I don't have any chapters that I hate. I don't have any chapters that when I get to it, I'm like, oh, this. I literally love everything. My all-time absolute favorite chapter is probably The Forest Again.
Yeah.
From Deathly Hallows. Yeah. And it also happens to be probably Rowling's favorite chapter. She considers that chapter to be her best writing in the whole series.
And you would concur.
But The Forest Again is probably one of my all-time favorites.
All right, so why don't we start there?
Oh my god. We're going to read that right now?
Why not?
Oh, I'm going to cry. Because I'm going to cry.
Well, we'll stop here and there and discuss it.
You want to read that chapter?
Unless you want to choose a different one, but you just said that was your favorite, so why not?
It's one of my favorites, hands down. The Egg in the Eye is also another favorite chapter of mine.
Which one was that?
It's the one in book 4 where Harry gets stuck in the step.
Oh, yeah. That one's just good fun.
It's just great. You want to go for, like...
How about Umbridge versus McGonagall? Oh, that would be a good one.
That's, what, Careers Advice?
I think so, yeah.
I think that's Careers Advice.
It's around that chapter, if it's not that chapter.
I think that's the chapter where McGonagall just tells Umbridge to fuck off. I mean, I'm down to do that chapter too.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to.
Why can't you make?
Because I don't know the chapters well enough. I don't know.
Well, would you rather listen to The Forest Again, or would you rather listen to McGonagall tell Umbridge?
McGonagall telling Umbridge to F off.
All right,
of course.
All right. So let's do that chapter.
Why is that even a question?
Well, I don't know. I had to ask. All right.
I'm always down for some McGonagall telling Umbridge off.
All right. We'll get out my
super fancy.
Oh, well, Katie was like, tell us a singing and we can figure out the chapter. If there's another, like, moment.
Well, yeah, but Honestly, probably my favorite chapter is probably the Felix Felicis chapter, but I feel like we've talked about that chapter so much. You know.
I mean, I'll read that one too.
I mean, yeah, I just
The burial.
feel like we should look at something else because I feel like we always talk about that chapter.
Because it's so good.
Chapters.
Listen, I'm down to do either one. All right, guys. Right now, all of y'all in the stream, tell us the Umbridge versus McGonagall chapter or the Felix Felicis chapter. Right now, tell us. Which one do you want?
McGonagall.
All
That's
right.
my vote.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start looking. And while people make decisions, I'm just going to poke through. You know what? I don't want to destroy this. You kidding me? Oh my god.
What'd you do?
I no, I went to the table of contents and it's useless. Well, it is. It's useless.
We didn't do a review on this book. Yet, at least.
The table of contents is useless because there's all it says is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Pages 1 through 1,000,000. And that's it. So I just gotta find it now.
That's all you need to know. It's Harry Potter.
Alright. Oh, alright. We are choosing favorite chapter to read right now. Alright, here we go. I found it. It's way at the end.
I stepped away just as everyone hopped in.
I know.
What's up, Mike? What's up, Maddie?
Ooh. Mike said the Battle of Dumbledore versus Voldemort.
Ooh, that is a good one.
It was a good one. The only one he ever feared.
One of the best illustrations in Order of the Phoenix.
I think that's the name of the chapter. The only one he ever feared.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so far, I have careers advice. So if anyone has any more input, that's what we're going with.
I mean, we could definitely do the Dumbledore versus Voldemort.
I mean, I'm down. I got the book right in front of me. I got it right here. Got it. How about Lupin chapters?
Oh boy.
The other chapter, yes. The other chapter
the real
was
Lupin.
I feel like I've had enough of Lupin for a lifetime right now. But I mean, if someone wants a Lupin chapter, by all means, what are you making?
You've had enough. I'm gonna make some tea.
I want some.
You thought you had enough. I gotta listen to it twice. And we've reached that point in the story in the editing.
What's happening right now in the story while you're editing?
Remus is being a sad man.
That is not helpful at all to determine where in the story we are.
He's being a 7th year sad man. So extremely sad.
That doesn't help.
Where every chapter every chapter is like the worst day of his life.
Every chapter is the worst day. Okay.
No,
yes.
it definitely didn't ruin it for me either.
No, same. Book Lupin is great. Book Lupin is awesome. All the young dudes Lupin.
Even all the young dudes, they ended it well.
They did end it well.
Man, that stretch.
7th year, though, was toxic as fuck.
Yeah, it was.
Alright. So, we're gonna read careers advice.
Alright.
I just need a drink of water.
Aye.
That is a good one. Chapter 29. Careers Advice. "But why haven't you got occlumency lessons anymore?" said Hermione, frowning. "I've told you," Harry muttered. "Snape reckons I can carry on by myself now that I've got the basics." "So you've stopped having funny dreams?" said Hermione sceptically. "Pretty much," said Harry, not looking at her. "Well, I don't think Snape should stop. I don't think Snape should stop until you're absolutely sure you can control them," said Hermione indignantly. "Harry, I think you should go back to him and ask—" "No," said Harry forcefully. "Just drop it, Hermione, okay?" It was the first day of the Easter holidays, and Hermione, as was her custom, had spent a large part of the day drawing up revision timetables for the three of them. Harry and Ron had let her do it. It was easier than arguing with her, and in any case, they might come in useful. Ron had been startled to discover there were only 3 weeks left until their exams. "How can that come as a shock?" Hermione demanded as she tapped each little square on Ron's timetable with her wand so that it flashed a different colour according to its subject. "Dunno," said Ron. "There's been a lot going on."
Ron is completely me in high school.
"Well, there you are," she said, handing him his timetable. "If you follow that—" "Bobans! Bobans!
Thank God it wasn't anything fragile.
What are you doing, Bobans? What are you doing, Bobans? Pretty Bobans! Pretty Bobans! Pretty Bobans! No, don't bite. You lollipopans, don't bite."
I like to think this is what Crookshanks was like. Feisty cat.
It's a feisty baby. Like a Bobans.
I'm just gonna hold this now.
Titty
That's fine.
Bobans. Titty Bobans. Come back, Bobans.
She's okay.
All right. "Well, there you are," she said, handing him his timetable. "If you follow that, you should be fine." Ron looked down at it gloomily, but then brightened. "You've given me an evening off every week." "That's for Quidditch practice," said Hermione. The smile faded from Ron's face. "What's the point?" he said. "We've got about as much chance of winning the Quidditch Cup this year as Dad's got of becoming Minister for Magic."
Well, that didn't age well.
Hermione said nothing. She was looking at Harry, who was staring blankly at the opposite wall of the common room while Crookshanks pawed at his hand, trying to get his ears scratched. "What's wrong, Harry?" "What?" he said quickly. "Nothing." He seized his good copy of Defensive Magical Theory and pretended to be looking something up in the index. Crookshanks gave him up as a bad job and slunk away under Hermione's chair. "I saw Cho earlier," said Hermione tentatively. "She looked really miserable too. Have you two had a row again?" "What? Oh, yeah, we have," said Harry, seizing gratefully on the excuse. "What about?" "That sneak friend of hers, Marietta," said Harry. "Yeah, well, I don't blame you," said Ron angrily, setting down his revision timetable. "If it hadn't been for her—" Ron went into a rant about Marietta Edgecombe, which Harry found helpful. All he had to do was look angry, nod, and say, "Yeah," and "That's right," whenever Ron drew breath, leaving his mind free to dwell, ever more miserably, on what he had seen in the Pensieve. He felt as though the memory of it was eating him from inside. He had been so sure his parents were wonderful people that he had never had the slightest difficulty in disbelieving the aspirations that Snape cast upon his father's character. Hadn't people like Hagrid and Sirius told Harry how wonderful his father had been? "Yeah, well, look what Sirius was like himself," said a nagging voice inside Harry's head. He was as bad, wasn't he? Yes, he had once overheard Professor McGonagall saying that his father and Sirius had been troublemakers at school, but she had described them as forerunners of the Weasley twins, and Harry could not imagine Fred and George doing. dangling someone upside down for the fun of it, not unless they really loathed them. Perhaps Malfoy, or someone who really deserved it. Harry tried to make a case for Snape having deserved what he'd suffered at James's hands. But hadn't Lily asked, "What's he done to you?" And hadn't James replied, "It's more the fact that he exists, if you know what I mean." Hadn't James started it all simply because Sirius had said he was bored? Harry remembered Lupin saying back in Grimmauld Place that Dumbledore had made him prefect in the hope that he would be able to exercise some control over James and Sirius. But in the Pensieve, he'd sat there and let it all happen. Harry kept reminding himself that Lily had intervened. His mother had been decent. Yet the memory of the look on her face as she shouted at James disturbed him quite as much as anything else. She'd clearly loathed James, and Harry simply could not understand how they could have ended up married. Once or twice he even wondered whether James had forced her into it. For nearly 5 years the thought of his father had been a source of comfort, of inspiration. Whenever someone had told him he was like James, he'd glowed with pride inside, and now he felt cold and miserable at the thought of him. The weather grew breezier, brighter and warmer as the summer holidays passed, but Harry, along with the rest of the 5th and 7th years, was trapped inside, revising, traipsing back and forth to the library. Harry pretended his bad mood had no other cause but the approaching exams, and his fellow Gryffindors were sick of studying themselves. His excuse was unchallenged. "Harry, I'm talking to you. Can you hear me?" "Huh?" He looked around. Ginny Weasley, looking very windswept, had joined him at the library table where he had been sitting alone. It was late on Sunday evening. Hermione had gone back to Gryffindor Tower to revise ancient runes, and Ron had Quidditch practice. "Oh, hi," said Harry, pulling his books towards him. "How come you're not at practice?" "It's over," said Ginny. "Ron had to take Jack Sloper up to the hospital wing." "Why?" "Well, we're not sure, but we think he knocked himself out with his own bat." She sighed heavily. "Anyway," excuse me, "a package just arrived. It's only just got through Umbridge's new screening process." She hoisted a box wrapped in brown paper onto the table. It had clearly been unwrapped and carelessly rewrapped. There was a scribbled note across it in red ink reading, "Inspected in pass by the Hogwarts High Inquisitor." "It's Easter eggs from Mum," said Ginny. "There's one for you. There you go." She handed him a handsome chocolate egg decorated with small ice snitches, and according to the packaging, containing a bag full of fizzing whizbees. Harry looked at it for a moment, then to his horror, felt a lump rise in his throat. "Are you okay, Harry?" Ginny asked quietly. "Yeah, I'm fine," said Harry gruffly. The lump in his throat was painful. He did not understand why an Easter egg should have made him feel like this. "You seem really down lately," Ginny persisted. "You know, I'm sure if you just talk to Cho—" "It's not Cho who I want to talk to," said Harry brusquely. "Who is it then?" asked Ginny. He glanced round to make sure nobody else was listening. Madame Pince was several shelves away, stamping out a pile of books for a frantic-looking Hannah Abbott.
You know, that's another chapter we could do. The date. Madame Puttyfoot's.
Madame Puttyfoot's. The date.
We all wanted to feel yucky.
And awkward.
That contagious, embarrassed feeling.
"I wish I could talk to Sirius," he muttered. "But I know I can't." More to give himself something to do than because he really wanted any, Harry unwrapped his Easter egg, broke off a large bit, and put it into his mouth. "Well," said Ginny slowly, helping herself to a bit of egg too, "if you really want to talk to Sirius, I expect we could think of a way to do it." "Come on," said Harry hopelessly. "With Umbridge policing the fires and reading all our mail." The thing about growing up with Fred and George, said Ginny thoughtfully, is that you sort of start thinking anything's possible if you've got enough nerve. Harry looked at her. Perhaps it was the effect of the chocolate. Lupin had always advised eating some after encounters with Dementors, or simply because he'd finally spoken aloud the wish that had been burning inside him for a week. He felt a bit more hopeful. "What do you think you're doing?" "Oh, damn," whispered Ginny, jumping to her feet. "I forgot." Madame Pince was swooping down on them, her shriveled face contrived with rage. "Chocolate in the library!" she screamed. "Out! Out! Out!" And whipping out her wand, she caused Harry's books, bag, and ink bottle to chase him and Ginny from the library, whacking them repeatedly over the head as they ran. As though to underline the importance of their upcoming examinations, a batch of pamphlets, leaflets, and notices concerning various wizarding careers appeared on the tables in Gryffindor Tower shortly before the end of the holidays, along with yet another notice on the board which read, "Careers Advice. All fifth years are required to attend a short meeting with their head of house during their first week of the summer term to discuss their future careers. Times of individual appointments are listed below." Harry looked down the list and found that he was expected in Professor McGonagall's office at 2:30 on Monday, which would mean missing most of divination. He and the other fifth years spent a considerable part of the final weekend of the Easter break reading all of the careers information that had been left there for their perusal. "Well, I don't fancy healing," said Ron on the last evening of the holidays. He was immersed in a leaflet that carried the crossed bone and wand emblem of St. Mungo's on its front. "It says here you need at least an E in NEWT level in potions, herbology, transfiguration, charms, and defense against the dark arts. I mean, blimey, they don't want much, do they?" "Well, it's a very responsible job, isn't it?" said Hermione absently. She was poring over a bright pink and orange leaflet that was labelled, "So, you think you'd like to work in Muggle relations?" "You don't seem to need many qualifications to liaise with Muggles. All they want is an OWL in Muggle studies. Much more important is your enthusiasm, patience, and a good sense of fun." "You'd need more than a good sense of fun to liaise with my uncle," said Harry darkly. "Good sense of when to duck, more like." He was halfway through a pamphlet on wizarding banking. "Listen to this. Are you seeking a challenging career involving travel, adventure, and substantial danger-related treasure bonuses? Then consider a position with Gringotts Wizarding Bank, who are currently recruiting curse breakers for thrilling opportunities abroad. They want arithmancy, though. You could do it, Hermione." I don't much fancy baking. Baking. Ha ha ha. I don't much fancy baking. I can't say it.
Baking?
Banking.
Banking?
I don't much fancy banking, said Hermione vaguely, now immersed in, "Have you got what it takes to train security trolls?"
I want to know what that job entails. Training, like, what are security trolls? We never see them. I'm assuming that's one of the things they show in, like, Hogwarts Legacy, one of the trailers. It's like the big troll breaking through.
I'm assuming it must have something to do with Gringotts and maybe the Ministry of Magic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, we didn't see any security trolls at Gringotts.
We didn't go to those levels.
Yeah, we went straight to the dragon level.
Right, we didn't even get to trolls. We went straight through.
Sounds like some levels in D&D.
Bye-bye!
Well, first you got the goblin level, then you got the
you go
warty witch level.
Yeah, you go by
then
tiers.
You got the troll.
Maybe we passed the troll levels, you know? I don't know. Maybe the Longbottom fortune has a troll.
You think Longbottom does have a fortune?
Yes.
What do you think they did for their money?
They were part of the Sacred 28. I don't know.
Oh,
I
they
don't
just-
know if I want to know.
Just have a big savings and accruing interest. Definitely didn't do anything illegal.
They might have back in the day. You don't know what they did in the Middle Ages.
Them and the Malfoys went on a search.
That face.
Mm-hmm.
Romance!
The Holy Grail is in their safe.
Could be.
They stole that and the Ark of the Covenant.
Well, yeah, you don't know what the Longbottoms got. They might have. They might have.
Would have been like a little fun Easter egg if they showed in one of the vaults, like the Ark of the Covenant.
Ark of the Covenant, just chilling.
Some wizard just stole it.
Romance! Romance!
There were security trolls in book 3. Okay, there go my theories.
Yeah, there were. To protect Hogwarts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, there you go.
Okay.
Hey! Said a voice in Harry's ear. He looked round. Fred and George had come to join them. Ginny's had a word with us about you, said Fred, stretching out his legs on the table in front of them and causing several booklets on careers with the Ministry of Magic to slide off onto the floor. She says you need to talk to Sirius. What? Said Hermione sharply, freezing her hand halfway through towards picking up. Make a bang at the Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes. Yeah, said Harry, trying to sound casual. Yeah, I thought I'd like... Don't be ridiculous, said Hermione, straightening up and looking at him as though she could not believe her eyes. With Umbridge groping around in the fires and frisking all the owls? Well, we think we could find a way around that, said George, stretching and smiling. It's a simple matter of causing a diversion. Now, you might have noticed that we've been rather quiet on the Mayheb during the Easter holidays. Well, what was the point, we asked ourselves, of disrupting leisure time? Continued Fred. No point at all, we answered ourselves. And, of course, we'd have messed up people's revision, too, which would be for the very last thing we'd want to do. He gave Hermione a sanctimonious little nod. She looked rather taken aback by his thoughtfulness. But it's business as usual from tomorrow, Fred continued briskly. And if we're going to be causing a bit of an uproar, why not do it so that Harry can have his chat with Sirius? Yes, but still, said Hermione with an air of explaining something very simple to someone very obtuse. Even if you do cause a diversion, how is Harry supposed to talk to him? Umbridge's office, said Harry quietly. He'd been thinking about it for a fortnight and could come up with no alternative. Umbridge herself had told him that the only fire that was not being watched was her own. Are you insane? Said Hermione in a hushed voice. Ron had lowered his leaflets on jobs in the cultivated fungus trade and was watching the conversation warily. I don't think so, said Harry, shrugging. And how are you going to get there? How are you going to get in there in the first place? Harry was ready for this question. Sirius's knife, he said. Excuse me? Christmas before last, Sirius gave me a knife that'll open any lock, said Harry. So, even if she's bewitched the door so Alohomora won't work, which I bet she has... What do you think about this? Hermione demanded of Ron, and Harry was reminded irresistibly of Mrs. Weasley appealing to her husband during Harry's first dinner in Grimmauld Place. I dunno, said Ron, looking alarmed at being asked to give an opinion. If Harry wants to do it, it's up to him, innit? Spoken like a true friend and Weasley, said Fred, clapping Ron hard on the back. Right then, we're thinking of doing it tomorrow, just after lessons, because it could cause maximum impact if everyone's in the corridors. Harry, we'll set it off in the east wing somewhere. Draw her right away from her office. I recommend we could be able to guarantee you, 20 minutes? He said, looking at George. Easy, said George. What sort of diversion is it? asked Ron. "You'll see, little bro," said Fred, as he and George got up again. "At least you will if you trot along to Gregory the Smarmy's corridor around 5 o'clock tomorrow."
Yeah, I think this is the chapter where Fred and George, do their last hurrah, isn't it? Is this where McGonagall and Umbridge go in at it?
I think so, yeah.
Maybe both. Maybe we're getting a twofer with this one.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all of that, all together.
Alright, okay. I guess this is one of the best chapters.
Harry awoke very early the next day, feeling almost as anxious as he'd done on the morning of his disciplinary hearing at the Ministry of Magic. It was not only the prospect of breaking into Umbridge's office and using her fire to speak to Sirius that was making him feel nervous, though that was certainly bad enough. Today also happened to be the first time Harry would be in close proximity to Snape since Snape had thrown him out of his office. After lying in bed for a while, thinking about the day ahead, Harry got up very quietly and moved across the window beside Neville's bed and stared out on a truly glorious morning. The sky was a clear, misty, opalescent blue. Directly ahead of him, Harry could see the towering beech tree below which his father had once tormented Snape. He was not sure what Sirius could possibly say to him that would make up for what he'd seen in the Pensieve, but he was desperate to hear Sirius's own account of what happened, to know of any mitigating factors there might have been, any excuse at all for his father's behaviour. Something caught Harry's attention. Movement on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. He squinted into the sun and saw Hagrid emerging from between the trees. He seemed to be limping. As Harry watched, Hagrid staggered to the door of his cabin and disappeared inside it. Harry watched the cabin for several minutes. Hagrid did not emerge again, but smoke furled from the chimney, so Hagrid could not be so badly injured that he was not unequal to stoking the fire. Harry turned away from the window, headed back to his trunk, and started to dress. With the prospect of forcing entry into Umbridge's office ahead, Harry had never expected the day to be a restful one, but he had not reckoned on Hermione's almost continual attempts to dissuade him from what he was planning to do at 5 o'clock. For the first time ever, she was at least as inattentive to Professor Binns in History of Magic as Harry and Ron were, keeping up a stream of whispered admonitions that Harry tried very hard to ignore. "And if she does catch you there, apart from being expelled, she'll be able to guess you've been talking to Snuffles, and this time I expect she'll force you to drink Veritaserum and answer her questions." "Hermione," said Ron in a low and indignant voice, "are you going to stop telling Harry off and listen to Binns, or am I going to have to take my own notes?" "You take notes for a change. It won't kill you." By the time they reached the dungeons, neither Harry nor Ron was speaking to Hermione. Undeterred, she took advantage of their silence to maintain an uninterrupted flow of dire warnings, all uttered under her breath in a vehement hiss that caused Seamus to waste 5 whole minutes checking his cauldron for leaks. Snape, meanwhile, seemed to have decided to act as though Harry was invisible. Harry, of course, was well used to this tactic, as it was one of Uncle Vernon's favourites, and on the whole was grateful he had to suffer nothing worse. In fact, compared to what he usually had to endure from Snape in the way of taunts and snide remarks, he found the new approach something of an improvement, and was pleased to find that when he was left well alone, he was able to concoct an invigoration draught quite easily. At the end of the lesson, he scooped up some of the potion into a flask, corked it, and took it up to Snape's desk for marking, feeling that he might at least have scraped an E. He just turned away when he heard a smashing noise. Malfoy gave a gleeful yell of laughter. Harry whipped round. His potion lay in pieces on the floor, and Snape was watching him with a look of gloating pleasure. "Whoops," he said softly. "Another 0, then, Potter." Harry was too incensed to speak. He strode back to his cauldron, intending to fill another flask and force Snape to mark it, but saw to his horror that the rest of the contents had vanished. "I'm sorry," said Hermione with her hands over her mouth. I'm really sorry, Harry. I thought you'd finished, so I cleared up. Harry could not bring himself to answer. When the bell rang, he hurried out of the dungeon without a backwards glance and made sure that he found himself a seat between Neville and Seamus for lunch, so that Hermione could not start nagging him again about using Umbridge's office. He was in such a bad mood that by the time he got to divination, he'd quite forgotten about his careers appointment with Professor McGonagall, remembering it only when Ron asked him why he wasn't into her office. He hurtled back upstairs and arrived out of breath only a few moments late. "Sorry, Professor," he panted as he closed the door. "I forgot." "No matter, Potter," she said briskly, but as she spoke, somebody else sniffled from the corner. Harry looked round. Professor Umbridge was sitting there, a clipboard on her knee, a fussy little pie frill about her neck, and a small, horribly smug look on her face. "Sit down, Potter," said Professor McGonagall tersely. Her hands shook slightly as she shuffled the many pamphlets littering her desk. Harry sat down with his back to Umbridge and did his best to pretend he could not hear the scratching of her quill on her clipboard. "Well, Potter, this meeting is to talk over any careers and ideas you might have, and to help you decide which subjects you should continue into your 6th and 7th years," said Professor McGonagall. "Have you had any thoughts about what you'd like to do after Hogwarts?" Said Harry. He was finding the scratching noise from behind him quite distracting. "Yes," Professor McGonagall prompted Harry. "Well, I thought of maybe being an Auror," Harry mumbled. "You'll need top grades for that," said Professor McGonagall, extracting a small, dark leaflet from under the mass on her desk and opening it. "They ask for a minimum of 5 NEWTs and nothing under exceeds expectations grade, I see. Then you would be required to undergo a stringent series of character and aptitude tests at the Auror's office. It's a difficult career path, Potter. They only take the best. In fact, I don't think anybody has been taken on in the last 3 years." At this moment, Professor Umbridge gave a very tiny cough, as though she was trying to see how quietly she could do it. Professor McGonagall ignored her. "You want to know which subjects you ought to take, I suppose," she went on, talking a little louder than before. "Yes," said Harry. "Defense against the dark arts, I suppose." "Naturally," said Professor McGonagall crisply. "I would also advise—" Professor Umbridge gave another little cough, a little more audibly this time. Professor McGonagall closed her eyes for a moment, opened them again, and continued as though nothing had happened. "I would also advise transfiguration, because Aurors frequently need to transfigure or untransfigure their work. And I ought to tell you now, Potter, that I do not accept students into my NEWT classes unless they have achieved exceeds expectations or higher at ordinary wizarding level. I'd say you're averaging acceptable at the moment, so you'll need to put in some good hard work before the exams to stand a chance of continuing. Then you ought to do charms, always useful, and potions. Yes, Potter, potions," she added with the merest flicker of a smile. "Poisons and antidotes are essential study for Aurors, and I must tell you that Professor Snape absolutely refuses to take students who get anything other than an outstanding in their OWLs, so—" Professor Umbridge gave her most pronounced cough yet. "May I offer you a cough drop, Dolores?" Professor McGonagall said curtly, without looking at Professor Umbridge. "Oh, no, thank you very much," said Umbridge, with that simpering laugh Harry hated so much. "I just wondered whether I could make the teensiest interruption, Minerva." "I dare say you'll find you can," said Professor McGonagall through tightly gritted teeth. "I was just wondering whether Mr. Potter has quite the temperament for an Auror," said Professor Umbridge sweetly. Were you? Said Professor McGonagall haughtily. Well, Potter, she continued, as though there had been no interruption. If you are serious in this ambition, I would advise you to concentrate hard on bringing your transfiguration and potions up to scratch. I see Professor Flitwick has graded you between acceptable and exceeds expectations for the past 2 years, so your charm work seems satisfactory. As for defence against the dark arts, your marks have been generally high. Professor Lupin in particular thought you... Are you quite sure you wouldn't like a cough drop, Dolores? Oh, no need. Thank you, Minerva, simpered Professor Umbridge, who had just coughed her loudest yet. I was just concerned that you might not have Harry's most recent Defence Against the Dark Arts marks in front of you. I'm quite sure I slipped in a note. What? This thing? Said Professor McGonagall in a tone of revulsion as she pulled a sheet of pink parchment from between the leaves of Harry's folder. She glanced down at it, her eyebrows slightly raised, then placed it back into the folder without comment. Yes, as I was saying, Potter, Professor Lupin thought you showed a pronounced aptitude for the subject, and obviously for an Auror. Did you not understand my note, Minerva? Asked Professor Umbridge in honey tones, quite forgetting to cough. Of course I understood it, said Professor McGonagall, her teeth clenched so tightly the words came out a little muffled. Well, then, I am confused. I'm afraid I don't quite understand how you can give Mr. Potter false hope that... False hope? Repeated Professor McGonagall, still refusing to look round at Professor Umbridge. He has achieved high marks in all of his Defence Against the Dark Arts tests. I am sorry to have to contradict you, Minerva, but as you will see from my note, Harry has been receiving very... Harry has been receiving very poor marks in my... very poor results in his classes with me. I should have made my meaning clearer, said Professor McGonagall, turning at last to look at Umbridge directly in the eyes. He has achieved high marks in all Defence Against the Dark Arts classes taught by a competent teacher. Professor Umbridge's smile vanished as suddenly as a light bulb glowing. She sat back in her chair, turned a sheet on her clipboard, and began scribbling very fast indeed, her bulging eyes rolling from side to side. Professor McGonagall turned back to Harry, her thin nostrils flared, her eyes burning. Any questions, Potter? Yes, said Harry. What sort of character and aptitude test did the Ministry do on you, if you do get enough NEWTs? Well, you'll need to demonstrate the ability to react well to pressure and so forth, said Professor McGonagall. Perseverance and dedication, because Auror training takes a further 3 years, not to mention very high skills and practical defence. It'll mean a lot more study even after you've left school, so unless you're prepared to... I think you will also find, said Umbridge, her voice very cold now, that the Ministry looks into the records of those applying to be Aurors, their criminal records. Unless you're prepared to take even more exams after Hogwarts, you really should look at another... Which means that this boy has as much chance of becoming an Auror as Albus Dumbledore has of returning to this school. A very good chance, then, said Professor McGonagall. Potter has a criminal record, said Umbridge loudly. Potter has been cleared of all charges, said McGonagall even more loudly. Professor Umbridge stood up. She was so short that this did not make a great deal of difference, but her fussy, simpering demeanour had given place to a hard fury that made her broad, flabby face look oddly sinister. "Potter has no chance whatsoever of becoming an Auror." Professor McGonagall got to her feet too, and in her case this was a much more impressive move. She towered over Professor Umbridge. "Potter," she said in ringing tones, "I will assist you to become an Auror if it's the last thing I do. If I have to coach you nightly, I will make sure you achieve the required results." "The Minister for Magic will never employ Harry Potter," said Umbridge, her voice rising furiously. "There may be a new Minister of Magic by the time Potter is ready to join," shouted Professor McGonagall. Shrieked Professor Umbridge, pointing a stubby finger at McGonagall. Yes, 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 of course. That's what you want, isn't it, Minerva McGonagall? You want Cornelius Fudge replaced by Albus Dumbledore. You think you'll be where I am, don't you? Senior Under-Secretary to the Minister and Headmistress to boot." "You are raving," said Professor McGonagall, superbly disdainful. "Potter, that concludes our careers consultation." Harry swung his bag over his shoulder and hurried out of the room, not daring to look at Professor Umbridge. He could hear her and Professor McGonagall continuing to shout at each other all the way back along the corridor. Professor Umbridge was still breathing as though she'd just run a race when she strode into the Defence Against the Dark Arts lesson that afternoon. "I hope you've thought better of what you were planning to do, Harry," Hermione whispered the moment they'd opened their books to Chapter 24, Non-Retaliation and Negotiation. "Umbridge looks like she's in a really bad mood today." Every now and then Umbridge shot glowering looks at Harry, who kept his head down, staring at Defensive Magical Theory, his eyes unfocused, thinking. He could just imagine Professor McGonagall's reaction if he was caught trespassing in Professor Umbridge's office, merely hours after she'd vouched for him. There was nothing to stop him simply going back to Gryffindor Tower and hoping that some time during the next summer holidays he'd have a chance to ask Sirius about the scene he'd witnessed in the Pensieve. Nothing, except the thought of taking the sensible course of action made him feel as though a lead weight had dropped into his stomach. And then there was the matter of Fred and George, whose diversion was already planned, not to mention the knife Sirius had given him, which was concurrently residing in his school bag, along with his father's old invisibility cloak. But the fact remained that if he was caught... "Dumbledore sacrificed himself to keep you in school, Harry," whispered Hermione, raising her book to hide her face from Umbridge. "And if you get thrown out today, it will have been for nothing." Harry could abandon the plan and simply learn to live with the memory of what his father had done on a summer's day more than 20 years ago. And then he remembered Sirius and the fire upstairs in the Gryffindor common room. "You're less like your father than I thought. The risk would have been what it. Oh my God.
Deep breath.
The risk would have been what made it fun for James." But did he want to be like his father anymore? "Harry, don't do it. Please don't do it," Hermione said in an anguished tone as the bell rang at the end of class. Harry did not answer. He did not know what to do. Ron seemed determined neither to give his opinion nor his advice. He would not look at Harry, though when Hermione opened her mouth to try dissuading Harry some more, he said in a low voice, "Give it a rest, okay? He can make up his own mind." Harry's heart beat very fast as he left the classroom. He was halfway along the corridor outside when he heard the unmistakable sounds of a diversion going off in the distance. There were screams and yells reverberating from somewhere above them. People exiting the classrooms all round Harry were stopping in their tracks and looking up at the ceiling fearfully. Umbridge came pelting out of her classroom as fast as her short legs could carry her. Pulling out her wand, she hurried off in the direction opposite. It was now or never. "Harry, please," Hermione pleaded weakly. But he'd made up his mind. Hitching his bag more securely onto his shoulder, he set off at a run, weaving in and out of students now hurrying in the opposite direction to see what all the fuss was about in the East Wing. He reached the corridor to Umbridge's office and found it deserted. Dashing behind a large suit of armour whose helmet creaked round to watch him, he pulled open his bag, seized Sirius's knife, and donned the invisibility cloak. He then crept slowly and carefully back from behind the suit of armour and along the corridor until he reached Umbridge's door. He inserted the blade of the magical knife into the crack round it and moved it gently up and down, then withdrew it. There was a tiny click and the door swung open. He ducked inside the office, closed the door quickly behind him and looked round. Nothing was moving except the horrible kittens that were still frolicking on the wall plates above the confiscated broomsticks. Harry pulled off his cloak and, striding over to the fireplace, found what he was looking for within seconds, a small box containing glittering flue powder. He crouched down in front of the empty grate, his hands shaking. He'd never done this before, though he thought he knew how it must work. Sticking his head into the fireplace, he took a large pinch of powder and dropped it onto the log stacked neatly beneath him. They exploded at once into emerald green flames. "Number 12, Privet Drive. Number 12, Grimmauld Place," Harry said loudly and clearly.
That would be a surprise for the Dursleys' neighbors.
It was one of the most curious sensations he'd ever experienced. He'd travelled by flue powder before, of course, but then it had been his entire body that had spun around and around in the flames through the network of wizarding fireplaces that stretched over the country. This time, his knees remained firm upon the cold floor of Umbridge's office, and only his head hurtled through the emerald fire. And then, as abruptly as it had begun, the spinning stopped. Feeling rather sick, and as though he were wearing an exceptionally hot muffler round his head, Harry opened his eyes to find he was looking up out of the kitchen fireplace at the long wooden table where a man sat poring over a piece of parchment. "Sirius?" The man jumped and looked round. It was not Sirius, but Lupin. "Harry," he said, looking thoroughly shocked. What's happened? Is everything all right?" "Yes," said Harry. I just fancied a chat with Sirius." "I'll call him," said Lupin, getting to his feet, still looking perplexed. "He went upstairs to look for Creature. He seems to be hiding in the attic again."
Yeah, okay. We read the fan fiction. We knew what was going on. Why Lupin's there all by himself.
And Harry saw Lupin hurry out of the kitchen. Now he was left with nothing to look at but the chair and table legs. He wondered why Sirius had never mentioned how very uncomfortable it was to speak out of the fire. His knees were already objecting painfully to the prolonged contact with Umbridge's hard stone floor. Lupin returned with Sirius at his heels a moment later. "What is it?" said Sirius urgently, sweeping his long dark hair out of his eyes and dropping to the ground in front of the fire so that he and Harry were on a level. Lupin knelt down too, looking very concerned. "Are you all right? Do you need help?" "No," said Harry. "It's nothing like that. I wanted to talk about my dad." They exchanged a great look of surprise, but Harry did not have time to feel awkward or embarrassed. His knees were becoming sorer by the second, and he guessed 5 minutes had already passed from the start of the diversion. George had only guaranteed him 20. He therefore plunged immediately into the story of what he'd seen in the Pensieve. When he'd finished, neither Sirius nor Lupin spoke for a moment. Then Lupin said quietly, "I wouldn't like to judge your father on what you saw in there, Harry. He was only 15. "I'm 15, said Harry heatedly. "Look, Harry," said Sirius placatingly. "James and Snape hated each other from the moment they set eyes on each other. It was just one of those things. You can understand that, can't you? I think James was everything Snape wanted to be. He was popular, he was good at Quidditch, good at pretty much everything. And Snape was just this little oddball who was up to his eyes in the dark arts, and James,
Whatever else he might have appeared to you, Harry, always hated the dark arts."
"Yeah," said Harry. "And he just attacked Snape for no good reason, just because you said you were bored," he finished, with a slightly apologetic tone to his voice.
"I'm not proud of it,"
said Sirius quickly. Lupin looked sideways at Sirius, then said,
"Look, Harry, what you've got to understand is that your father and Sirius were the best at school, whatever they did. Everyone thought they were the height of cool. If they sometimes got a bit carried away..." "If we were sometimes arrogant little Burks, you mean,"
said Sirius. Lupin smiled. "He kept messing up his hair," said Harry in a pained voice. Sirius and Lupin laughed.
"I'd forgotten he used to do that,"
said Sirius affectionately.
"Was he playing with the snitch?"
said Lupin eagerly. "Yeah," said Harry, watching uncomprehendingly as Sirius and Lupin beamed reminiscently. "Well, I thought he was a bit of an idiot."
"Of course he was a bit of an idiot," said Sirius bracingly. "We were all idiots. Well, not Moony so much,"
he said fairly, looking at Lupin. But Lupin shook his head.
"Did I ever tell you to lay off Snape?" he said. "Did I ever have the guts to tell you I thought you were out of order?" "Yeah, well," said Sirius, "you made us feel ashamed of ourselves sometimes. That was something."
"And," said Harry doggedly, determined to say everything that was on his mind now he was here, "he kept looking over at the girls by the lake, hoping they were watching him."
"Oh, well, he always made a fool of himself whenever Lily was around," said Sirius, shrugging. He couldn't stop himself showing off whenever he got near her."
"How come she married him?" Harry asked miserably. "She hated him."
"Nah, she didn't,"
said Sirius.
"She started going out with him in 7th year," said Lupin. "Once James had deflated his head a bit," said Sirius. "And stopped texting people just for the fun of it," said Lupin.
"Even Snape?" said Harry.
"Well," said Lupin slowly, "Snape was a special case. I mean, he never lost an opportunity to curse James, so you couldn't really expect James to take that lying down, could you?"
"And my mum was okay with that?"
"She didn't know too much about it, to tell you the truth," said Sirius. "I mean, James didn't take Snape on dates with her and jinx him in front of her, did she? Did he?"
Sirius frowned at Harry, who was still looking unconvinced.
"Look," he said, "your father was the best friend I ever had, and he was a good person. A lot of people are idiots at the age of 15. He grew out of it."
"Yeah, okay," said Harry heavily. "I just never thought I'd feel sorry for Snape."
"Now you mention it,"
said Lupin, a faint crease between his eyebrows,
"how did Snape react when you'd seen all this?"
"He told me he'd never teach me occlumency again," said Harry indifferently. "Like, that's a big disappointment."
"He what?"
shouted Sirius, causing Harry to jump and inhale a mouthful of ashes.
"Are you serious, Harry?" said Lupin quickly. "He stopped giving you lessons?"
"Yeah," said Harry, surprised at what he considered a great overreaction. "But it's okay, I don't care. It's a bit of a relief to tell you."
"I'm coming up there to have a word with Snape,"
said Sirius forcefully, and he actually made to stand up, but Lupin wrenched him back down again.
"If anyone's going to tell Snape, it'll be me," he said firmly. "But Harry, first of all, you're to go back to Snape and tell him that on no account is he to stop giving you lessons. When Dumbledore hears..."
"I can't tell him, he'll kill me," Harry said, outraged. "You didn't see him when I got out of the Pensieve."
"Harry, there is nothing so important as you learning occlumency," said Lupin sternly. "Do you understand me? Nothing."
Okay,
said Harry, thoroughly discomposed, not to mention annoyed. I'll try and say something to him, but it won't be. He fell silent. He could hear distant footsteps. "Is that creature coming downstairs?" "No," said Sirius, glancing behind him. "It must be someone on your end." Harry's heart skipped several beats. "I better go," he said hastily, and pulled his head backwards out of the fire of Grimmauld Place. For a moment his head seemed to be revolving on his shoulders. Then he found himself kneeling in front of Umbridge's fire, with it firmly back on, and watching the emerald flames flicker and die. "Quickly! Quickly!" he heard a wheezy voice mutter right outside the office door. "Ah, she's left it open!" Harry dived for the invisibility cloak, and had just managed to pull it over himself when Filch burst into the office. He looked absolutely delighted about something, and was talking to himself feverishly as he crossed the room, pulled open a drawer in Umbridge's desk, and began rifling through the papers inside it. "Approval for whipping! Approval for whipping! I can do it at last! They've had it coming to them for years!" He pulled out a piece of parchment, kissed it, then shuffled rapidly back out the door, clutching it to his chest. Harry leapt to his feet, making sure his bag and that the invisibility cloak was completely covering him. He wrenched open the door and hurried out of the office after Filch, who was hobbling along faster than Harry had ever seen him go. Once landing down from Umbridge's office, Harry thought it was safe to become visible again. He pulled off the cloak, shoved it in his bag, and hurried onwards. There was a great deal of shouting and movement coming from the entrance hall. He ran down the marble staircase and found what looked like most of the school assembled there. It was just like the night when Trelawney had been sacked. Students were standing all around the walls in a great ring. Some of them, Harry noticed, covered in a substance that looked very much like stink sap. Teachers and ghosts were also in the crowd. Prominent among the onlookers were members of the inquisitorial squad, who were all looking exceptionally pleased with themselves, and Peeves, who was bobbing overhead, gazed down at Fred and George, who stood in the middle of the floor with the unmistakable look of two people who'd just been cornered. "So!" said Umbridge triumphantly. Harry realised she was standing just a few stairs in front of him, once more looking down upon her prey. "So, you think it amusing to turn a school corridor into a swamp, do you?" "Pretty amusing, yeah," said Fred, looking up at her without the slightest sign of terror, slightest sign of fear. Filch elbowed his way closer to Umbridge, almost crying with happiness. "I've got the form, headmistress," he said hoarsely, waving the piece of parchment Harry had just seen him take from her desk. "I've got the form, and I've got the whips waiting. Oh, let me do it now." "Very good, Argus," she said. "You two," she went on, gazing down at Fred and George, "are about to learn what happens to wrongdoers in my school." "You know what?" said Fred. "I don't think we are." He turned to his twin. "George," said Fred, "I think we've outgrown full-time education." "Yeah, I've been feeling that way myself," said George lightly. "Time to test our talents in the real world, don't you reckon?" asked Fred. "Definitely," said George. And before Umbridge could say a word, they raised their wands and said together, "Accio brooms!" Harry heard a loud crash somewhere in the distance. Looking to his left, he ducked just in time. Fred and George's broomsticks, one still trailing the heavy chain and iron peg with which Umbridge had fastened them to the wall, were hurtling along the corridor towards their owners. They turned left, streaked down the stairs, and stopped sharply in front of the twins, the chain clattering loudly on the flagstone floor. "We won't be seeing you," Fred told Professor Umbridge, swinging his leg over his broomstick. "Yeah, don't bother keeping in touch," said George, mounting his own. Fred looked round at the assembled students, at the silent, watchful crowd. "If anyone fancies buying a portable swamp, as demonstrated upstairs, come to number 93, Diagon Alley. Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, he said in a loud voice. Our new premises. Special discounts to Hogwarts students who swear they're going to use our products to get rid of this old bat, added George, pointing at Professor Umbridge. Stop them! Shrieked Umbridge, but it was too late. As the inquisitorial squad closed in, Fred and George kicked off from the floor, shooting 15 feet into the air, the iron peg swinging dangerously below. Fred looked across the hall at the poltergeist bobbing up and down on his level above the crowd. Give her hell from us, Peeves. And Peeves, who Harry had never seen take an order from a student before, swept his belled hat from his head and sprang a salute as Fred and George wheeled about to tumultuous applause from the students below and sped out of the open front doors into the glorious sunset.
Yeah, I'd say this is one of the best chapters. I forgot how much happened in this one chapter.
So much happened.
Like
so
three
much
of the best
happened.
things.
So much happened. Umbridge just gets owned through
Over and over.
Yeah, over and over and over.
Alright, I can't remember if I pointed this out when we first read it, but what's the point of chaining a broom? If number one, the spell just rips the chain out of the wall. And number two, how do you chain a broom to the wall? Can't you just slide it out, you know?
I think the idea, what'd she say, there's an iron peg attached to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
So it's like pegged into the wall. So I feel like it's pegged into the wall, chained with a chain, and then there's another like thing holding it on. Plus, you don't learn Accio until like 4th or 5th year.
I know, but still, you would think that she'd have some sort of spell blocking that, or magical chains that couldn't be broken that easily.
I think Umbridge is so arrogant that she wouldn't think that anyone would try to take their broom in that way.
Well, they learned today.
They're probably ignorant to the spell. Maybe I think it's all about ignorance and underestimation. Umbridge would never think that they would know that spell, nor that they would try to do it. I think she relies completely on intimidation tactics, and she would think, well, I took your broom, there's no way you're going to just try to take it.
Well, maybe now she'll be a little bit safer. Think things through a little bit more. Be harder to steal your brooms.
Well, I mean, Harry doesn't get his broom back.
Yeah, Ginny's right. Fred and George are definitely the best brothers. Make you feel like anything's possible.
That is a good line.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is about being brothers with Fred and George, you start thinking anything's possible. I think that chapter right there, that little moment with her and Harry, is actually a really great moment between her and Harry, and kind of part of the foundation of, because she also mentions Cho in their little conversation, and she's like, you guys fighting again? I think that's part of the foundation of how their relationship later develops. It's such a small little moment, but I think it says quite a lot about how they end up together.
Yeah, kind of. God, that Cho chapter. That's another one. That might be a chapter I would skip.
Would you skip that one?
Yeah, I can't do it.
Too awkward for you?
I don't want to feel awkward while I'm reading.
That's true. Umbridge also thinks Filch.
Filch can use magic.
Yeah.
She doesn't know that he's a squib? Oh.
He doesn't tell. You think he's going to tell her?
I thought it would just be known. She has files on, like, everyone. I just assumed that she would know that he was a squib. But, hey. You know, just because you just watched that episode of Gordon Ramsay, Umbridge really reminds me of Amy from Amy's Baking Company.
No, No, my magic is good. They're all haters. I speak cat. Meow, meow, meow.
You're just trying to take my job.
You're just trying to take my job away from me. You guys just don't understand. You don't realize how talented I am. I'm really good. They're all haters and trolls and half-breeds. And they don't understand how good me and my husband, Cornelius Fudge, are at my job.
Except he doesn't know where he's my husband yet. Oh my god. Umbridge. But yeah,
McGonagall is such a
definitely a good
queen
chapter.
in this chapter, though. McGonagall is so good.
Oh,
She just
I know.
ignores her, and then champions Harry every step
I
of the way.
wish we could have been a Rita Skeeter on the wall for that conversation.
Like after Harry leaves.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because it says Harry left, but he could still hear the shouting going on as he was walking down the hallway.
I'm nosy, man. I would have been invisibility cloak.
Listening at the door.
No. Invisibility cloak and just step back in. Just watch it all unfold.
Maddie's like, I like how she stood over her. Because Harry says, Umbridge stood up. Really didn't make a difference. McGonagall stood up, and it was scary. And McGonagall is described as, tall, severe looking.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know Umbridge is probably,
She's...
my height or shorter. So...
Do they say how high she is? I know they just say she's short.
No.
Toad-like.
Rowling doesn't ever use, measurements when she talks about how tall people are.
Oh, okay.
She just says short, tall, blah, blah, blah.
Short, tall, in between.
Considering how nosy Harry is, he didn't use his cloak nearly enough. Right?
That's true.
Harry is nosy. He doesn't use it during the moments when we want him to use it. He uses it on the train in book 6 and gets his nose stomped on for no reason.
Which, ow. But yeah, this...
But this was an iconic moment. You could have heard McGonagall just boom, 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 boom. Nah, not interested. Don't care.
Right? This is after he has detention with her, too.
Although, in Harry's defense, he was kind of on a time crunch this time.
For what?
Fred and George are setting off that distraction. He only has so much time to get to the office.
Yeah, but he had Defense Against the Dark Arts after that. Or maybe he had something else. No, because he says that later in the day, even later in the day, Umbridge is still out of breath. So there was plenty of time in between that.
I guess. He could have just sat and listened for a minute.
Yeah.
He could have.
He probably had, charms or something. He could have blown that off. Would have been worth it.
No, he had Defense Against the Dark Arts. Because Hermione was just like, Harry, don't do it. And Ron was just like, let him make his own decision. Ugh.
I know, but it says later in the day, so I don't think he had Defense Against the Dark Arts right then.
No, he could have definitely sat there and listened for a minute. Because they kept yelling at each other. He could have sat there and listened for a minute. Also, kudos to Ron for playing very, very middle of the field during this whole chapter.
You didn't want to hear two old women? Well, I did, Maddie. I wanted to hear it.
Harry did feel awkward. That's true.
I wanted to hear... McGonagall, was holding back. She was keeping it PG because Harry was there. I want to know what
she said to
McGonagall
her.
is capable of when you just let her go. There's no holding back.
What she really said to her.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Would have blown right past the PG-13 rating.
Right into rated R territory.
Oh, yeah. Use up your 2 shits and 1 fuck in, a sentence.
I also want to apologize. I feel like that was not my best reading. I will try to do much better next time.
Well, it's been a while since
you
read Harry Potter.
I will try to do better next time. But Ron very much is trying very hard not to rock the Hermione boat
I know, Ron's just like,
Stay the course. Stay the course. Be the wingman. Don't upset my lady, who's not my lady. But just stay in the middle.
my lady that doesn't know it yet.
Yeah, right? My lady that doesn't know she's my lady, but I love her, but I don't even know I love her, but Hermione, let him make his own decision. Harry, you got this. What did you say? Nothing, I didn't say anything. Just let it be, guys. It's when you go back and read the books, it's so obvious how
Ron is just towing the line.
and it's just so obvious how in love with Hermione he is, but he doesn't know how in love with Hermione he is. But it's obvious in the way that he acts, but he just doesn't know it. It's so good.
I mean, I feel like at this point he knows it.
He doesn't though.
I think he does. I
Well,
just don't think he knows how to approach it.
I mean,
right now.
yeah, maybe
at this
he does.
point, he knows.
In book 4, he figures it out.
Yeah.
But then in book 5, it's like, what do I do about it? And then in book 6, it's like, I know what to do about it. Date someone else and make her jealous. That's what you do about it.
Exactly.
And then she sends birds at you and they rip you apart. That's how I win my girl.
That's how it works.
Ron, you idiot.
I mean, if you don't get the bird flu for your relationship, do you really love the person?
We obviously don't really love
I guess
each other.
not. Doomed to fail.
I will bring home some llama poop and smear it on you to show you that I love
what? Talking about birds here, not smearing poop. What? It's just,
It's all.
you never listen. Oh my god.
Do you want me to bring home a bird for you?
No.
Do you want me to bring home a llama for you?
No.
What about
I'm good. Just don't bring home any animals.
No animals?
No.
Really, no animals?
No.
Not even.
You know I want to, but no.
Why not? I had a dream we did it.
What, brought home a kangaroo?
Yeah,
How did that go in your dream?
great.
Well, it was just a dream.
It was great.
It
It
won't work
went
out that
well.
way. No.
It went well.
No.
He was lovely. He was a sweet man's.
That worked well. I wonder, we've learned about like European wizarding schools, American wizarding schools, and we've learned.
Have we? Yeah, I guess we have learned about Americans.
Well, we haven't because we haven't watched all the Fantastic Beasts, but you learn about them. And, I'm wondering, what about Australian wizarding schools?
That is a good question. I want to know about that.
Right?
Can you bring a kangaroo to school? Are there magic kangaroos?
I don't think you could bring a kangaroo, but maybe a wallaby.
Why can't you bring a kangaroo?
Because they're big. Wallabies, smaller, manageable.
Horned eagles or horned owls are big.
Maybe you can bring a quokka.
I'm bringing a kangaroo. I don't care.
Could have sworn it was a wallaby. I'm so sorry.
I thought it was a wallaby, mate. He's a big man now, and we've bonded. He can help me with spells. You can't let me not bring him in. He's my mate.
Someone will bring a. What are the raptor birds called?
Katie says kookaburras instead of owls.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, they eat the same things.
Magpies.
Magpies. Oh my.
No one's stealing your mail.
No one is
ever.
stealing your mail if you've got magpies. Oh my god, the Dursleys would hate themselves if it was magpie mail.
Oh, I'd love to see that, the Australian version.
All I can think of is that episode of Bluey where Bandit and Bingo were trying to stay away from that magpie.
Curry swap.
Yeah.
Oh man. We have watched too much of that show. I remember the name of the episodes.
Curry swap. Magpie mail. That's the way to do it. I mean, kookaburras are cute. They're very sweet. Like, our kookaburras are very nice, but, like, if you don't want anyone to steal your mail. But what if. But
maybe the emus.
use emu. That's
Yeah,
for.
that's how they came to an agreement. That's how the emu wars ended.
I feel like emus should be used.
They agreed to deliver our mail.
I feel like emus should be used for, like, heavy packages. It's like the. I feel like it's like the post office in Hogsmeade. You have the little owls for, like, one day only, and then you have, like, the other ones for, like, long distance flights. I feel like emus are for, like, big packages.
Yeah, maybe. Harrison pointed to a magpie the other day and called it a pigeon pie. Oh, that's so funny.
That's great. But I think the problem with
Hopefully you didn't insult that magpie. Be waiting for you.
I feel like the problem with magpie mail, though, is like you tie it to the magpie's leg, you set it go, whatever.
What's Kevin?
He's cassowary.
Cassowary. Cassowaries are for your security mail,
Security mail.
like bank deliveries and stuff. You send it on a cassowary.
Yeah, I feel like that's like high security. Like, I need to send the Philosopher's Stone to someone. I'm gonna put it on a cassowary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Uh, the problem with magpie mail, though, is like if you send it by magpie mail, what if it's like halfway through its delivery and something pisses it off? What's to stop it from like firing the package at that person? And just being like, "Fuck you, mate! I'm gonna brain you with this parchment delivery."
It's tied to its leg.
Could chew it off.
No.
Yeah, maybe not.
It was fun reading Harry Potter again.
It was.
We'll definitely have to do it.
Cassowaries are high security
Do it more
delivery.
often. Because I think we have a few favorite chapters. We'll definitely have to
Oh,
read.
there's lots,
I'll
yeah.
have to come up with my favorite next time.
I feel like I could have read that better, but if everyone thought it sounded okay, I just feel like in my mind it sounded like garbage.
I thought it sounded good. I mean, stumbled over a few words here and there, but it was good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Alright. Alright. We were going to do a deep dive on this, and we started talking about Australian Wizard Post instead. Whoops.
Theory break.
I'm trying to think of other Australian birds, and all I can think of are cassowaries, emus, kookaburras, and magpies.
Well, we've ran out of ideas, so let's deep dive this one.
Well, let me use the bathroom first, and then we
Okay.
can deep dive this.
So is it done? All right. Be right back, people.
The closet. Yeah, I'm almost. Yeah, I'm coming in.
Yeah, because I think this was definitely like a big turning point chapter. Oh, did you see the new like gameplay reveal of Hogwarts Legacy?
No.
You should check that out. I'm like super hyped for that game. I was kind of like whatever about it when I first saw it, but
Now you're
like,
a Harry Potter fan and you're into it.
well, that, but you have like full control to choose whether to be like a good or evil wizard.
And that appeals to you.
Like you can, yeah, adds that replayability.
So what we're gonna do?
Except I always choose the good path.
So-
Even when I make a bad character, I start feeling bad for choosing the bad options, and I end up choosing the good.
So what we're gonna do is when you and I play and we live stream us playing, you'll choose good, and I'll go bad.
Well, I figure when we live stream, we'll do like a like live stream character, I guess. We'll let everyone vote on whether the character is going to be good or bad. And then we can just, make our own characters in our free time if we want.
See, I think it would be cool to kind of do a split screen and do a duel. Here's my good character. Here's my bad character.
Did he have the mirror?
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay. So this was my takeaway as well, Katie. I was reading, and maybe that's part of why I was stumbling over it. When he talks about the knife and everything else, I'm just like, why don't you use the mirror?
How many times does he forget to use the mirror? This is number one. We know it happens at least twice now.
But I think that's the whole point, is that he doesn't think to use the mirror. Because he gives it to him before he goes back to school. Gives it to him.
Okay.
And then he doesn't use it, and he doesn't use it, and he doesn't use it. And then it comes back full circle where he finds the broken mirror, and he's just like, ah. And I think it's supposed to be, it's like a universal thing that happens when someone you love so much and they pass away, and then you look at these things. What if I had only done this? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do this? I think it's supposed to be that feeling that everyone has.
I don't know. Harry's is way more obvious, and you know what? He should feel bad. For how many times he forgot about that.
If he had just opened that package. But I think that's a huge part of death and loss.
Oh, he didn't know he had
regret.
a mirror? Oh, okay. See, that's what I was saying. So he doesn't know that he has it yet. In other words, open your packages as soon as you get them, people. May save yours or someone's life.
I think this book also kind of echoes with Hermione's like constant nagging thing. I think it echoes how she is in 6 with the Half-Blood Prince book. And then again about the Horcrux.
And not so subtly hinting at Hermione and Ron's relationship by comparing it to the Weasleys. Arthur and
there are
Molly
multiple
Wobbles.
There are so many times where Rowling describes Hermione talking to Ron, like Harry thinking, it sounded like Mrs. Weasley, blah 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 blah. It's so funny. No, he doesn't say what it is. He just kind of says, here, take this if you ever need to talk to me or whatever. Here it is. Yeah, Ron is so much like Arthur. And that is the thing. Ron and Arthur are so much alike.
Maybe that's why I like them both as characters.
They're the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at all the Weasley kids, Ron really is the most like Arthur. The other ones are very much distinct, separate personalities. But Ron very much is like Arthur.
So you think in middle age Ron is gonna fall in love with batteries?
He might. He might. And I mean...
And what a time. I mean...
Hermione's a Muggle-born, so...
Ron would be middle-aged now. And, yeah. Now we're going into, like, the EV era. This is the time to be a battery lover.
Imagine Arthur being given an Alexa.
Oh my god.
Yeah, in the epilogue, Ron does...
ruin his marriage.
In the epilogue, Ron is pretty much Arthur. He's built like Arthur, he looks like Arthur, and he sounds like him when he's talking to the kids. He sounds just like him.
Yeah, like father, like son.
There is some Freud going on with Ron and Hermione. Like, some weird Oedipus Freud stuff going on with Ron and Hermione.
Yeah.
But this is the thing I never understood about Ron and Hermione getting together and why people didn't like it. And I never understood why people didn't like Ron and Hermione getting together, because I feel like from book one, it sets the stage for Ron and Hermione getting together and that they're made for each other.
Mm-hmm.
As long as everything works well and they're like healthy people, they are perfect for each other.
There are definitely some points where you could argue that they are not healthy people for each other.
Yeah, the hints are there from book one. Absolutely. It's right at the beginning. As soon as Ron and Hermione and Harry meet each other, it's like right there.
Yeah.
But I never understood why people don't like them together. And I feel like it must just be because they've only watched the movies and they've never read the books.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with it either. I thought it was great. That moment in book 7 when they get out of the chamber and they're standing there and Ron's just like, wait, what about the house elves? They don't know what's going on. And Hermione just kisses him. It's the greatest moment. It's so good. And everyone's like, that is not. No, it's perfect. It's literally perfect. You guys don't understand. It's great.
I don't know about perfect, but I mean
it's perfect for them.
Yeah.
It's perfect for them. It works for them. It's the right moment given the narrative and the plot and everything else. It's perfect.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I really wouldn't have cared if they ended up with someone else either. But are those the same people, though, that want Hermione and Harry together?
Probably.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like that.
That's gross, right?
I wouldn't say it's gross, but...
It's gross. I think it's gross.
I wouldn't say it's gross, but... There's something about their dynamics that just doesn't seem like they would work well together. I'm not really sure how to put it other than it just doesn't feel like they would work well.
Their personalities don't match well like Ron and Hermione's do. To me, I think it's gross because when I think of Harry and Hermione, it very much just reads as best friends, sibling almost, familial, very platonic, like nothing romantic whatsoever about Harry and Hermione's relationship. It very much just reads as family to me. So when people are like, Harry and Hermione should have been together, in my mind, I'm like, ew, no, that's incest. That's gross.
Ew. Why would you think that? Oh, that no.
It's
You
like
see it
like
that.
To me, it's like emotional incest because they are just familial brother and sister relationship. That's it. There's nothing else to it than that. Because that's how I read the relationship. There's nothing there that would ever suggest that they would get together. To cross,
I can offer one counterpoint. They're teenagers. Hormones are getting crazy.
Yeah, but you never see that with Ron or you never see that with Harry and Hermione. It's never there. There's never that there with them. From the get-go, Harry and Hermione have always just been friends, and it's been the familial bond that Harry has been looking for, because Harry his whole life has been looking for family, and he finds family in Hermione. He finds family in Ron. But Ron and Hermione don't find family in each other. What Ron and Hermione find each other...
That kind of makes it weird, though, when he goes for Ginny. Ron, you're like a brother to me. I'm going to sleep with your sister.
We're not talking about Ginny right now. We're talking about Hermione.
You know, I really feel like I'm a part of your family. Is Ginny single yet? Just down the hall, right? I'll find it. It's okay.
Why are you making it gross?
Because I didn't find Hermione and Harry gross, but apparently you did.
I'm
bringing a little gross to the party too. There we go.
I do find Harry and Hermione gross. And that's the reason why.
Okay.
I feel like because of that relationship, if you were to take it beyond the family friend sister relationship, if it was to cross that line, there would be something like not right about that.
Why is it weird when Ron's snogging Harry's sister? Harry doesn't have a sister.
Yeah, right? What? Harry does... Yeah, exactly. Harry doesn't have a sister.
Unless Dudley likes to cross-dress. I could see it. That's why he's so angry. He's got all this pent-up energy.
Because he wants to be a drag... Because he's gay and he
Yeah.
wants to be a drag queen. And he can't come out of the closet.
He became a drag queen, found himself, and that's why him and Harry get along now.
Is his stage name Ickle Diddykins?
No.
Big D is his stage name still?
Yes. Ickle Diddykins is what his mom called him, alright? That is... Ew. That's gross. That is disgusting.
But there's nothing sexual about drag queens.
Still gross.
It's not weird because Ron and Hermione's relationship is not a brother-sister relationship. That's why it's not weird.
I think what he's saying is that Ron thinks of Harry as a brother, and Harry thinks of Hermione as a sister, ergo, related.
Yeah, but Ron and Hermione do not view each other as brother and sister.
I know, I'm just joking. I'm just explaining it, that's all.
This has nothing to do with the chapter that we just read either.
It doesn't. Get back on the chapter. Come on, what are you doing?
Okay, so Lupin and Sirius also both excuse James's behavior by saying, he was 15 and is an idiot. We're all idiots at 15. It
They're
happens.
not wrong.
They're not wrong. Everyone is a moron at 15.
Yeah.
Everyone is an absolute dipshit at 15.
Mm-hmm.
No excuses whatsoever. I bet
No
even
15-year-old will admit that, but they are.
every 15-year-old who is like enrolled in a graduate school program because they're a genius, they're still an idiot.
Yeah.
Because you're a 15-year-old and your brain is doing absolute bullshit things. It's a fucking mess. That is a fact.
Your brain is not developed, and it is just a hormone cocktail.
Yes. Exactly. 15 is a volatile time. I didn't enjoy it.
I know, I love that. Sirius just... Well, of course, we were all idiots. We were 15. What do you expect?
Yeah, Sirius, I think...
Harry's an idiot, too, because he didn't remember he had the mirror.
Right. Harry is an idiot because look what happened with Cho on that date. He's an idiot.
Or not Sirius, Snape in the Pensieve, going into the Pensieve, and now he's not going to learn occlumency.
Right.
Now, does Sirius and Remus know about Harry and the whole Horcrux thing right now? Like, why are they so determined to...
No.
Okay.
No.
So I'm just like, why are they so determined to get him back there to learn occlumency?
I think what it is they are so determined for him to learn occlumency because Dumbledore has stressed the importance of it. I think Dumbledore has made it very clear that it's very important that he learns these things.
Mm.
And Dumbledore has given them enough information to get Lupin and Sirius to push Harry to do it.
Gotcha.
They do not know about the Horcruxes. No one knows about the Horcruxes at this point except Dumbledore.
So another question I kind of just came up with in my mind.
That's
talking about the Horcruxes.
That's my theory anyway. At this point, no one knows except Dumbledore.
So Ron, Hermione, everyone, they take turns holding the Horcrux locket because it like sucks the good out of you. You become angry and everything.
It's kind of like the ring.
Why doesn't Harry just have anger problems all the time? Or anyone around Harry have anger problems all the time?
Well, he's got the Horcrux inside of him too. So I feel like it doesn't affect him because he's got like a sister soul in there, and they're like, you're me, I'm you. I also feel like Harry is much more confident and solid in who he is as a person, whereas Ron is very insecure.
But even Harry has those effects when he's wearing the Horcrux.
Yeah, he's more irritable.
Yeah, so why isn't he just always irritable if he has a Horcrux inside of him? Or why doesn't people get irritated when they're just around him for too long, you know?
Katie's agreeing with me. I think Harry is the exception to the rule. Because he's a living human being with a Horcrux inside him, which has never been seen or done before. He's an anomaly in that way. Meanwhile, you have Ron, who has a lot of insecurity issues and a lot of shit for that Horcrux to feed off of. Hermione doesn't have the same problems. Ron is exclusive.
Ron gets to the extreme, but they all experience it.
Right, they do. But I think the difference with Harry is that he is not normal in comparison to the other two. He's a living Horcrux. And maybe the Horcrux inside that locket...
I'm not talking about the locket. Why doesn't the Horcrux inside Harry make him irritable all the time? Forget the locket. The locket was just an example of how the Horcruxes affect the person.
I think it's because he's a living being with his own soul and his own identity and his own individual person. And
But they all are. They're just holding the locket. That doesn't mean anything. Like
yeah, but the Horcrux is inside the
every one of them
object.
has a soul. Yeah, the Horcrux is inside Harry.
I think it's an anomaly, and it's different because it's within a human being. It's not trapped inside of an object being held by someone else. Hold on, let's... Isn't Harry learning about... Dumbledore is worried Voldemort while it is...
Enter his mind. Yeah. So, Dumbledore is worried that Voldemort will enter Harry's mind. That's like the reason why he wants to do it. I was just wondering if Sirius and Lupin actually knew about it.
There are times where Harry acts more angry. I mean, book 5, like, I don't think the things that happen in book 5 where, like, Harry is the snake and all of that, and he sees through Voldemort's eyes, I don't think any of that stuff would have happened if he didn't have the Horcrux inside of him.
No, definitely not.
But I think also, when you go through books 1 through 4, I think the Horcrux part of him was so subdued and dormant because Voldemort himself was, like, weak and dormant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Harry is a whole soul. That part of the soul of Voldemort that's inside of Harry is such a small fraction of his actual soul that I think the Harry soul dominates the Voldemort piece plus the mother's love magic, and Harry's just innate goodness dominates that nastiness of that piece of soul that's in there.
But the locket still affects him.
Right,
so
because...
why is the locket different than that Horcrux inside of him?
Well, part of it could be because he's a human vessel and that's a physical vessel, and you have this piece of soul and now you have the other piece of soul combined together. I think it's to demonstrate that Harry is so innately good and loving and brave and determined that that piece inside of him can't overwhelm him, but when you get two together, it starts to affect him. And I do think there is something to say about Lily's love magic protecting him.
Yeah, I'm not buying it.
We also don't have anything to go based off of what happens when a Horcrux is inside of a person. There's nothing to go off of based on that.
Well, there, Tom's saying the mom magic.
That could have had an influence on it. It does protect Harry. I like to think, though, that Harry's overarching personality traits subdue what the Horcrux could potentially do.
I don't know. I don't really buy all that.
Yeah. There you go. Katie. He is able to block out Voldemort's mind when he is mourning the loss of Dobby. Dumbledore would call that love. But yeah, when he's mourning Dobby, Voldemort's mind is piercing with all these thoughts and things going on, and Harry, like, blocks it out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is his overwhelming ability to love that keeps that Horcrux at bay, because that Horcrux can't stand and tolerate love. And Harry is constantly surrounded by love and support, and he gives it overwhelmingly all the time. The difference with the other Horcruxes...
Caps Lock Harry.
The difference with the Horcruxes are they're inside of these solid, cold objects, whereas this other one is stuck with this person who just radiates love all the time. Because he does. Harry is all about love. That is his whole thing. He is seeking love, he is giving love, and that is all he wants in life. It's just that. I think it's that simple.
Okay.
You don't buy it.
No. Or we're just going around in circles now, so there's no point in continuing.
Yeah. He loves fiercely and is loved by many. Whereas Voldemort does not have that same thing. Also, this little piece of Voldemort's soul is surrounded by people that love Harry. And the love that they give Harry. That's toxic to that piece of soul.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have anything to draw off of.
Okay. That was conditional with him living at his aunt and uncle's. That was Dumbledore, right? Dumbledore put the...
Well, so Lily sacrificed herself and gave him the love protection, and that love protection is contingent on...
Family.
So... Harry has to live with family. And then Dumbledore does a lot of other magic, but that's part of it. It's the blood magic. So
gotcha.
The blood magic sacrifice of Lily bonded...
The blood sacrifice.
It is a blood magic sacrifice. Bonded Harry to Petunia and Vernon. If we want to get Martin about it. That's really what happened. It was blood magic. It was some high Valyrian shit went down on Halloween. And yes, at the end of book 5, Voldemort can't possess Harry because of Harry's love for his friends. That's what happens. Voldemort enters his mind and starts trying to control him, and Harry starts thinking about Ron and Hermione and Luna and everyone else and all the people that he loves, and Voldemort can't handle it, and he pieces out.
Oh, yeah.
He can't take it.
Okay. Why didn't they just kidnap him?
Well, they tried to. It didn't work.
That's kind of what they did.
That's pretty much the plot of the beginning of 7, is that they tried to, and it didn't work. They failed at it. Because Hagrid.
Alright, don't worry about Hagrid. Alright, what about...
Do you remember in the book, Hagrid, jumped on that other dude and sank him down to the ground?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
He jumped off the bike and jumped onto that other dude who was just riding a normal broomstick. And then Hagrid jumped on him.
Oh, that poor broom working overtime.
I know. Couldn't handle that. Baby dolphin sized feet.
Maybe that's why Dudley tried to get so big. He wanted to get as big as Hagrid to get him back one day.
I'm gonna avenge my butt.
Stick a tail on you. Alright, so was there anything else in this chapter you want to talk about?
I don't even know. I feel like we've got so far over the edge. We didn't even talk about the Marauders or anything. Baby dolphin feet is the weirdest description in the whole book.
If they knocked him out, took him to the burrow, then he decided never to return there.
What?
Well, the burrow wouldn't be protected by the same level of magic. Dumbledore does put protections on the burrow, so...
There's a lot of protections on the burrow. A lot of them.
It just doesn't have the love magic protection.
No, it doesn't have the love magic protection. Which is why, at the end of book 4, Harry has to go back to the Dursleys, despite Ron asking if he could go to the burrow. And that's why Dumbledore says every time, no, you have to go back to the Dursleys.
Mm-hmm.
no matter what anyone says. Like, no, you have to go back there. That's why. Because of that magic.
Because I'm assuming that whatever spells Dumbledore put on the burrow, if Voldemort tried hard enough, he could probably break through.
Yeah. Because there's no blood magic protection, like with Petunia.
And isn't it, he has to return every year for a small period of time. Does, like, break the magic on the Dursleys if he doesn't return?
It does. And it's as long as Harry considers that place home.
Gotcha.
And it says he returned home to the Dursleys. He returned home to the Dursleys. I would agree with that. No one else seems to really understand it except Dumbledore. But I also feel
even
like
Dumbledore doesn't fully understand it.
I think he understands it to a certain degree, but I think even Dumbledore has an understanding of it only so far as it goes. And I think the reason why Dumbledore understands it the way he does is because of the tragedy and loss that he suffered.
Yeah.
No one on Voldemort's side understands it, or even tries to.
Well, I mean, Dumbledore was kind of on course to become Voldemort at one point.
He could have been.
Happened.
That's the thing about Dumbledore, Voldemort, Snape, and Harry, is that any one of them could have become Voldemort. And it was all about
not
the choices.
Snape, because Voldemort was already Voldemort.
Well, right, but Snape could have kept continuing along that path, right? They all...
He could have, but Voldemort put him down before he got there. Probably. Giving Snape a little bit too much credit.
I was going a philosophical route, but you ruined it!
You're welcome.
No.
I just cleared things up.
No, you didn't.
Made it more streamlined.
You ruined the point. You ruined it.
Anyone could be Voldemort if you're bad enough. And don't care about your nose enough.
I don't know.
You know, he has to become a snake. Why vilify snakes? Why can't it be you do dark magic and you turn into like a, I don't know, a slug. Slug man. What if Voldemort did all that dark magic and he just started getting really, really slimy? And he could, like, pop his eyes out.
I mean, that's
and
a thought.
retract them.
It's a thought. What are you doing, Lola? What is she doing?
Although, Voldemort would probably die because of the internet and all the salt. She's just doing her thing where she likes to look cute.
Are you done with your silliness now?
Harry decides never to return, so if you... Yes. If he decided never to return, the magic would be broken. But that's why Dumbledore always had him go back and kept trying to... Insist that it was his home. Yeah. Kind of beating it into his mind.
Voldemort
is your home.
Dumbledore was not about to mess with that.
Yeah. So it was just brainwash on brainwash on brainwash. Harry has no real thoughts for himself. They're all implanted.
Wow, okay.
It's either a Horcrux, what the Dursleys told him, or what Dumbledore told him. God, I would hate to be Harry's therapist. So you had a man inside of you from a young age. Where did he touch you, Harry?
What about Ron? What about Ron? He had a man sleeping in the same bed with him for years.
This book is littered with pedophilia. Oh my god. Why make that decision while he was at his aunt and uncle's and vulnerable? Wait, make him make what decision? To leave? Like when they take off in book 7?
Yeah, I'm confused by that question too.
Because if that's the case, in book 7, he was going to be like an adult. So it would no longer... There was no magic left.
Yeah, he's legally an adult at that point.
Yeah. They were going to leave because the magic was going to end anyways. And
Yeah.
Voldemort knew this. So that's why they used the Polyjuice potion to make everyone look like
early.
Harry and sneak him out.
Because it breaks once he becomes a man.
Yeah, they broke the magic early, but it was like a day early.
Yeah, it was a couple
wasn't,
days.
like,
It was like a
super-
week or something.
Yeah.
If you go back and read the book, the conversation between Snape and Yaxley is like it's a matter of days.
Yeah. And they weren't really breaking it early, they were just leaving early, basically.
What's this? What's this, Doda? What's this, Doda? What's this, Doda? What is this, Doda?
Well, he had to stay for the summer at his aunt and uncle's, and then they
Yeah,
didn't really make him decide. They just said like,
Time to go,
"Yo,
dude.
Yeah,
Danger's coming. Time to go.
there was no decision to be made." So if he decided at the Burrow to never come back, the magic would have been broken there. But that's why Dumbledore kept insisting, and why the Weasleys went along with it. Because I'm assuming Dumbledore probably didn't tell them the full story, but you know,
Of course no. Dumbledore would never
definitely
tell him
told
the full
them,
story. But he
"Look,
would definitely...
Harry's gotta go back."
Yeah, he would definitely have given them some information to say, for whatever reasons, Harry has to go back.
Yeah. So yeah, the magic could have been broken at any time if Dumbledore wasn't pulling the strings and Harry was just like,
Left to make his own decisions,
Yeah.
yeah. Dumbledore protected Harry in that way. While making him live with the Dursleys.
and be tortured.
Yeah.
Great guy.
For the greater good. Right, Lola? For the greater good.
But
That has nothing to do with
I
the
don't.
chapter
We've
read today.
gotten so far off of what we read in this. Chapter,
I don't
even know how to break this down
No,
anymore.
I got nothing. At this point, I got nothing because we've gone so far out of the way of everything that...
Oh, everything bad happened because Dumbledore was too secretive. If Dumbledore had been more open, telling the truth, so much could have been avoided.
Well, and Dumbledore even says that at King's Cross.
Yeah.
He says... He admits that later at King's Cross.
But hey, if Dumbledore learned from his mistakes earlier, we wouldn't have had a story.
That's true. It all worked out in the end. That's true.
Yes.
What's that meme that says? There's a meme that quotes.
Only like 12 people died for Harry. That's all. It's fine.
There's a meme that quotes a chapter from book 4, and it says, "The Harry Potter series summed up in one sentence," and it basically says, "Oh, I should have told you that," said Dumbledore quietly. The end. Pretty much the whole series. That's it.
The whole series. Harry Potter and the Forgetful Old Man.
Oh, not forgetful. The purposefully omitting old man.
That's what he wants you to believe.
What prophecy? Oh, the prophecy.
Oh, yes, I
Harry,
know about
let's
that.
sit down and talk about it.
Yes, he kept all his secrets in many baskets. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
On that note, I don't know about you, but I'm getting very tired.
I don't know about you, but I need to eat dinner.
All right.
So, yeah, I think it's about that time.
All right. So, well, that was pretty fun. I guess
Yeah.
next time I'll think of what my favorite chapter is. Or you guys can leave some of your favorite chapters. I mean, you guys actually did give us a lot of good suggestions. We'll definitely do that again. And, yeah, we'll check out another chapter sometime.
Absolutely. Let's
Get
do
back
it
into
again.
some more Harry Potter action.
Yeah. So have a good night, everybody, and we will see you soon.